DL. These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Not even about me scoring a lot of points. Just being a close game and fighting the whole game and knowing we could have won the game if we didn't make these little mistakes. So if we corrected these mistakes. So yeah, but not just about me scoring a lot of points. Just about the team just being out there playing and not being scared because they defend the champs and they got Burn on their team and AD and all these guys. So that's all I was trying to do.
I feel like I think I jinxed him. He was so good a couple nights ago, and then we did that whole ode to Ant Edwards yesterday, and then he comes out and he starts like 0 for 8
it's a process, man. It's a process, okay?
Yeah.
All right. It'll be fine.
All right, 76ers. This is a Reckless Speculation Thursday edition of Mackey and Judd.
Reckless Speculation.
Powered by our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company, who recently launched My Shield. My Shield is a beautiful, beautiful tool for you business owners out there. It's the online client destination for risk management resources. Think about how helpful it would be for you to have employee training at your fingertips and industry resources that can help your business reach another level of success. That's where My Shield and Federated come in. At federatedinsurance.com, you can also download the app. And remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours. Inside information about your favorite local sports teams. His name is Darren Doogie Wolfson from 5 Eyewitness News and the Scoop Podcast. What's up, Doogs?
Good morning, gentlemen. You know what the sad thing is? That Anthony Edwards soundbite, until he started to name specific Lakers, the beginning of that soundbite could have been any number of games. Him referencing mistakes, everything else he said there in the first 10 seconds. That's the sad thing. They are, by like 2 games, the worst team in the NBA. Their G League team is worst in the Orlando bubble. Like, it's as bad as it gets. And I get the optimism when you watch McDaniels, when you watch Edwards, when you think about the young core. But the Western Conference isn't slowing down. At some point, these guys need to learn how to win. The roster still doesn't have enough two-way players, although McDaniels can certainly be that. But they don't have enough two-way guys. They don't have enough guys who are tough. They don't have enough guys who are smart. Like, you think about Brogdon in overtime last night. Malik Beasley goes underneath the screen.
Under the screen? Like, what are you doing?
What are you doing? Like, Malik, come on. Like, he's a sieve on defense. We know D'Angelo Russell is a sieve on defense. Like, this roster still has all sorts of problems. So, like, we can go any number of directions you want. But, like, they play entertaining games. I mean, that's the saving grace, right? Like, even in the last week, like the Clippers game, ever since Cat has come back, Clippers game, entertaining. The Charlotte game, maybe not as entertaining as I thought it would have been, but it wasn't bad. The Toronto game, entertaining. The Lakers game, entertaining. The Pacers game last night, entertaining. But the issue is they keep losing game after game.
That's really depressing, but absolutely spot on, Dukes. Absolutely. Russell and the fact that, according to you, he is elected to have the Nets doctors do the surgery instead of the Wolves. What does that say, delving deeper, about his trust in the Wolves franchise and the fact that he is going to a former team to have a pretty important procedure done?
I do think there are some hiccups there. He had the surgery already, Judd, yesterday. The surgery, no shock here. The surgery was a success. I can't remember the last time I heard that a surgery was not a success in terms of operating on an athlete. But yeah, he had the surgery yesterday in New York City. He had the Nets team doctor do the surgery. Now, full disclosure, the Nets doctor also performed the surgery on that same knee, that left knee, November of 2017. So you can connect, those dots if you want, that D'Angelo was already comfortable with that doctor. But do I think there's something to be said about some disconnect? Wolves medical staff, Wolves staff in general, D'Angelo Russell's camp. Yeah, I think there's something to be said about that. And how about this, Declan? How about this for a write that down? Can I enter the write that down sweepstakes?
Write it down. You like writing things down.
This is on the record now.
I got it.
Yeah.
Binding.
So the Wolves put out a press release. They have announced that they expect Russell to miss 4 to 6 weeks. Write this down. He won't be back in 4 to 6 weeks.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
I mean, maybe it's 8. Maybe it's the rest of the season that he's out. But I'm telling you, he's not coming back in 4 to 6 weeks. No way, no how.
Okay, thank you. I got chirped. I tweeted out, when the news came down, of course, like 4 to 6 weeks, he's for sure going to be out for the year. And a bunch of people, no, the schedule goes till May, you guys. He's not coming back for 10 games at the end on a bum knee. Now, I think it would be nice, and the Wolves would probably like to see him back so that they can see Cat and D'Lo for 8 games, like even 5 games to double their total at some point. And that's my next question to you, Doogie, is, we did a whole 30 minutes on, I am more interested personally now in seeing the Cat-Ant pairing and pick and roll, and Ant as more of a dominant ball handler. I think he has a chance. Dwayne Wade said it on TNT the other night. I think he has a chance to be something special. I'm much more interested in that pairing than I am now in the D'Lo Cat pairing that we've been promised for over a year, but bad luck and injuries. Where are you at with the next 2 years of this franchise? I mean, does D'Lo even, are they going to try and shop him at some point? Does he factor in with Ant? It just seems like, I almost feel like he's been replaced in terms of what this thing should look like in 2 or 3 years.
Phil, who the heck wants D'Angelo Russell? Unless the Wolves are taking back more money, I don't think there's a ripe trade market. If you go back to last February, 1 year ago, the Knicks kicked the tires. Outside of that, it was just the Wolves. There wasn't this robust market to trade with the Warriors for D'Angelo Russell. So I don't think anything has changed, especially after yet another surgery. He's about to turn 25 in a week. If you go down the injury rabbit hole with Russell, it is lengthy. He's had injury issues with the Lakers, with the Nets, with the Warriors, now with the Wolves, multiple knee surgeries, left knee. There are red flags there, and I get it. It's not like he's a player who relies on his athleticism, but still, for him to break down like he has before he's even turned 25, that is concerning. I'm with you, though, Phil. I mean, to me, Anthony Edwards benefits the most over the next, let's be realistic, 7 to 8 weeks, if that. Otherwise, maybe Russell is out for the year. That Edwards is going to benefit from being on the ball more. But do I think there's shipping Russell in the offseason? No, I don't have that sense. But I've said this before, and I'll continue to say it. I think Ryan Saunders enjoys coaching this roster more with D'Angelo out of the lineup. He's calling more plays. Ricky Rubio has finally found a pulse. This team is much more enjoyable to watch minus Russell. I don't think it's a coincidence. Cat back, Russell out, and all those games I cited in the last week that have been entertaining, it's not surprising. He's just not a fun basketball player to watch. I still think he's an elite shot maker in many ways, an elite shot creator. There is value in what he can bring. I don't want to turn this into a just rip the heck out of D'Angelo Russell session, because there is value in what he can do on the basketball court. But I don't think he's a winner. I think what happened when he took that team from 8-18 to the playoffs, I think that was a mirage. I don't think that is a trend. I don't think you are going to be a winning organization if he's your 1B or your number 2 or maybe even your number 3. I just don't think he impacts winning enough. And that's the next level for Anthony Edwards. I'll give Anthony Edwards some time. He's 19 years old. At some point, he needs to impact winning. That roster at Georgia last year was not a train wreck, but the team was a train wreck. So he didn't impact winning last year at Georgia. At some point, for Anthony Edwards to really hit his ceiling, really reach his full potential, he has to find a way to impact winning.
All right. Enough of this Wolves talk, because it's depressing now. Twins, pitchers and catchers report today. What is, among your notes, Dukes, what is the update on what potentially is going on, at least in contract talks, with Jose Barrios and Byron Buxton and the team?
Yeah, I mean, there's some guys that make logical sense for the Twins to explore extensions with. We've seen it in the past. I mean, I guess most recently, it would be Max Kepler, Jorge Polanco. Was that 2 spring trainings ago, or was that last year? Everything's a blur. Yeah, 2 years ago. So, I mean, we've seen them approach guys around this time, in terms of extending contract. There's been dialogue, Judd. Those 2 guys specifically, not on Tyler Duffy. Duffy was another guy that came to my mind. I checked on Duffy. Nothing on the Duffy front. But on Buxton and Barrios, there has been dialogue, but Judd, my sense is that nothing is imminent. Talks are ongoing. I don't sense anything is going to happen anytime real soon on either front. But that is something the Twins are interested in eventually, finding a happy medium and extending both Byron Buxton and Jose Barrios.
So Byron Buxton, man, it's funny how you say the timeline is a blur. How about this? Byron Buxton's now 27 years old. This is going to be his 7th season in the major leagues, okay? He's already come to the plate 1,500 times. Should be more than that, but he's missed so much time with injuries. And Byron Buxton, so age 27, this will be his 7th year in the major leagues. He's played in over 400 Major League Baseball games, and he's batting .238 with a .289 on base percentage, and he's only played over 100 games one time. What is your level of hope and expectation for Byron Buxton this year? And do you have any idea what the Twins think of him after all of this here going into 2021?
They still think there's a really, really good player there, Phil, and I don't fault them. Call me a Buxton apologist, but going back to what he did in 2017 as a then 23-year-old, platinum gold glove, earning legitimate MVP votes, I think there's still that player there. And I get it. I mean, you can cite the numbers. I'm with you. Now, I'm not even concerned if the power doesn't necessarily, come to full fruition. Just find a way to get to first base, because he's going to, in all likelihood, get to second base. He's still elite, right? The Gold Glove defense is still there. I don't think you would trade his defense in center field for anyone. He has to stay in the field. I mean, there's no denying that, right? Stop crashing into the wall. He needs to adjust his style of play out there, but you still would take his defense over just about anyone's. So the Twins still feel like when you go up the middle, that there is something to be said about defense up the middle. When you look at Polanco at second base, Rocco Baldelli has told people, he told Dunkers a couple weeks ago that he thinks Polanco's got Gold Glove ability at second base. You've got the best defensive shortstop in the game in Simmons. Then you've got Buxton. So when you look at second base, shortstop, center field, the Twins feel like, that triangle that they formed there, they feel like that they have the best triangle in all of baseball. So they still feel like Buxton has a lot to offer. And I'm telling you, they've engaged him in extension talks, so they'd like Buxton to be here for the next few years.
So I get that completely. And I get being still excited about his potential if and when he can play a complete year, Dukes. But I have a question now that I don't get. And it's not something that should be as difficult as the Twins make it out to be. Why is the option still Jake Cave behind Buxton? How can you watch this guy get hurt? The man literally collapsed in center field during a routine practice pursuing a ball. He finds ways, unfortunately, to get hurt. We know that. You know that. Phil knows that. My dog Stella, she knows it. Why is the option of we consider ourselves to be a contender, but if he gets hurt, it's Jake Cave?
Well, can I offer resistance? Phil, do you have JK's numbers handy? I feel like Jake Cave is actually underrated. Call me nuts on that, Judd.
He's not an everyday, but he's not the guy you want to plug in every day. I'm not saying he doesn't belong. Yeah. I'm saying he doesn't belong. The Buxton backup has to be a handcuff at this point.
Yeah, but you're not going to
put it this way.
If you want someone better than Cave, you're gonna pay $10 million for a starting center fielder. And put him on
look at the contract Kevin Pillar just got. I'm okay with Jake Cave as a fourth outfielder. I think if Buxton is out for a sustained period, you move Max Kepler to center. He's fully capable of playing center. That's when you bring Alex Kirilloff up if it happened, say April 10th, because Alex Kirilloff is going to start in St. Paul. They can keep him there for 20 games and earn an extra year of service time. That's inevitable that Alex Kirilloff isn't going to be on the opening day roster.
Baseball needs to just get lost.
I agree.
Hold on, Ron.
I'm with you.
Can you imagine, LeBron James, 2003, the number one overall pick. Listen,
G-League.
we feel like he's got, I know that we're the Cavs and we win 10 games every year, but we feel like he's got a couple things to learn down in the G League. Come on.
I agree. It's idiotic. It's stupid. I feel for Chris Bryant. I feel for Alex Kirilloff, but it's the rules that are in place. They need to collectively bargain to switch those rules. But as long as those rules are in place, I can't fault the Twins for taking advantage of the system. But it is super unfortunate if you're Alex just saying, let's say opening day, April 1 in Milwaukee, Byron Buxton gets hurt. He's out for a month. I think at that point they would consider, okay, we forget that extra year in 2027. We bring Karl, he can play, one of the corner spots. You move Kepler to right at reps in left field. In fact, right now I would make Louis Arise the betting favorite to be the opening day left fielder. He's going to get a lot of at-bats. If he doesn't start opening day, maybe it's the next game. But Louis Arise is going to play some left field. So I think it's one of those deals, Phil, where and Judd, that I think Cave is fine as a fourth outfielder. In fact, they think highly enough of him where they were fine moving Lamont Wade. And they played Lamont Wade at first base last year. So it's not like Lamont Wade was pigeonholed as just an outfielder, but they feel like they have enough outfield depth with Larnach being really close, that they could have made a move like that. So they really like this Anderson kid that they're bringing in. He's got an option, but that's a name to know. The kid they got from San Francisco, last name Anderson, he's going to impact the bullpen at some point. But I'm just telling you, right or wrong, you can disagree with it, Judd, but they feel confident with Jake Cave as the fourth outfielder.
No. And for the record, I agree with Judd. Jake Cave in big moments gets squirrely and dives for balls, and he strikes out just as much as Miguel Sano. But there's only so many starting caliber center fielder types in Major League Baseball, and the Twins have one in Buxton that only plays 80 games every year.
That's why I pay more
to get enough. But you're literally gonna have to pay $10 million for someone who can actually come in and be a good center fielder to replace him.
I've got a guy who gets hurt constantly.
On the Kirilloff front, imagine if he tears the cover off the ball for a month in spring training and he hits let's say he hits 350 with 8 home runs in spring training. Are you going to send him to St. Paul if you're the Twins? Is that going to happen?
Well, if he does that, Phil, 350 with 8 home runs in that small sample size, if the bat is buzzing on March 18th, March 25th, heading into, April 1, you'd have to bring him to Milwaukee, right? Like if that scenario plays out. But there is something to be said about a full extra year of service time, 2027, when Alex is you guys can do the math on that, but still in the prime of his career, to have a full extra year of control for 3 weeks. It's like 20 days. Like they could call up Alex on April 24th and still gain the extra year of service time. So I'm just telling you, I will be shocked if Alex Kirilloff is on the opening day roster.
Man, amazing.
That's
would Rooker have a better leg up at getting an opening day roster spot?
My 2 cents, they care more about they think Kirilloff is a pillar for the franchise for the next X amount of years. And Rooker's a bat. He's decent. I think they'd be more likely to put Rooker on the opening day roster because they don't really give a rip about service time with him, but they do about Royce Lewis and Alex Kirilloff.
Spot on. Yeah, I think Brent Rooker does make the opening day roster.
Yeah. Okay, Gopher basketball. You know what? It was close for 75% of the game last night against one of the legendary programs in college basketball history. Round of applause for the Gophers hanging close in a road game.
An average
moral
Indiana team.
Moral victory for the Gophs last night.
I'm not into moral victories, Phil. They're now 0-8 on the road. 7 of those 8 road losses are by double digits. Last night was another double-digit loss. You're right. I mean, at 55 with 8 minutes to go, they were still very much in it, but then shot selection turned into an issue. Defense turned into a bit of an issue. They're playing shorthanded. So presumably, fatigue became an issue. If you watched last night, I mean, you could see that Liam Robbins isn't anywhere near 100%. Like Fennessy, Rob Fennessy, I think that's his name. The Indiana guard had a driving layup, in that 18-2 run after it was 55-55. Liam Robbins normally would have blocked that shot. There was no explosion from Liam at the rim. Fennessy gets the layup. Gabe Kauscher is going to miss some amount of time. Like he's not playing Saturday against Illinois after breaking a finger. Yeah, they think he's going to miss some time here with that broken finger on his shooting hand. I get it that Gabe hasn't made shots for the most part this year. He's still a really good passer.
Has the finger been broken for 2 years?
Well, I'm telling you, the weird thing is, ever since they moved back to 3-point line,
he's very good defensively.
He was a good shooter his freshman year. Then they moved back the 3-point line, which really wasn't that far. That shouldn't be a big deal. But like I've talked to Gabe about this. He has mentioned, not necessarily specifically the moving back of the 3-point line, but that it's in his head. And it makes sense because mechanically, like you watch his shot, mechanically, everything looks really fluid. It looks good. But even if he isn't making shots, Phil, he's a really good defender. Like he's a plus defender. He's a plus passer. And they need that depth. Like you take him away, like they only really go, Sam Freeman got some time last night, but they really only go, 8, maybe 9 deep. You take one away and one's hobbling, and all of a sudden, like you can't have Brandon Johnson, for example, get into foul trouble. You can't have anybody get into foul trouble. Jamal Mashburn Jr. is going to be really good. That was a win on the recruiting front. We saw it last night in his first start. Really like Jamal. The overall numbers are damning. Like I wrote them down. So Pitino's overall Big Ten record now is 53-91. This is year 8. He's only won 14 road games in 8 years. Yeah. 5 came in 1 year. 5 came in 1 year. Yep. He is 6-36 on the road in the last 4 years. There is hope that the game at Nebraska will be made up. If you look at the schedules, next Thursday is the logical date. Like the Gophers are expecting to make up the game at Nebraska, but the Big Ten, like I had one Gopher source tell me the Big Ten is rudderless. Like the Big Ten should have already announced this. Like if you look at the schedules, next Thursday makes logical sense. Gophers in Lincoln to take on Nebraska, but there hasn't been that might be the Gophers' one hope to win a road game, maybe at Penn State, but I don't know if I like the Gophers' chances at Penn State. Heck, Nebraska almost beat Illinois last week, so I don't even know if I like the Gophers' chances to win at Nebraska, but they should at least have a chance to win a road game. And I do think, even in this weird year with no crowds, the committee is going to look at that. And it is going to be very glaring if their resume on Selection Sunday reveals that they never won a road game this season.
Yeah. Dukes, give us 60 seconds of rapid fire. We're losing connection a little bit, so 60 seconds of rapid fire scoops. Go.
I mean, there's nothing overly pressing. I do want to give some love to Amir Coffey. He had another good game last night for the LA Clippers. They lost to Utah. He had a really good night a few nights ago when the Clippers, minus Paul George and Kawhi Leonard and Nick Batum, they were down Pat Beverly, too. They were down 4 starters. Amir Coffey, my man, my neighbor in Golden Valley, Hopkins' own, the former Gopher. Amir Coffey is like proving he's a legit NBA player. Like not a starter, but Amir Coffey can be a rotation guy, even on a good team. So I just want to give Amir Coffey some love. Also, Tyler Cook is playing really well for the Iowa Wolves G League team. Guys are eligible to sign 10-day contracts in less than 10 days. I know there are some teams kicking the tires on adding Tyler Cook to their roster, including the Wolves. You know, so keep an eye on that. The Wolves do have an open roster spot. So if they wanted to take a look at Tyler Cook up here with the main team, that's something to keep an eye on. Alonzo Trier, too, for that matter. Gerson Rosas scouted the G League when he was in Orlando last weekend. So Gerson was on the road. They went from Charlotte Friday to Orlando on Saturday, actually Tampa, and then he drove over to Orlando. So Gerson Rosas was able to see these guys in person.
Yeah. That's Darren Doogie Wolfson, inside information about your favorite Minnesota sports teams. You can find the Scoop podcast on Apple, Spotify, and ScoreNorth.com, and you can find Doogie as part of the 5 Eyewitness News sports team. All right, Doogs.
See you, Doogie.
See you, boys. Congratulations to Brian Dozier on one heck of a run. Media good guy. I really, really always enjoyed my conversations with Brian, so wishing him all the best.
Yeah, Doge. All right, Doogs, we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Dale.
Doge announcing his retirement here.
Tender age of 33.
Which
surprised he couldn't get a job.
Weird.
Which I think hits on, if we had like a list of the 10 things that sets Judd off in sports, I think
you don't retire.
I think this is
at
one
33.
Of them.
You can't get a job, which is fine. But I mean, you're not retiring. You're forced out, which is how sports works.
It's true.
Which is how sports works. But I mean, you're not. You didn't say, you know what? I got offers from the Bronx Bombers. The Mets called. Padres called
He's
back.
a World Series champion, okay?
Yeah, you know, and it's
dude,
been
a legend, by the way. That dude was the star of those World Series parades.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got a ring and he's got multiple empty champagne
and you know what?
bottles as trophies.
He was always very nice to me. But at 33, he's not retiring. He was told your services are like, I guarantee you, if he told the Twins, here's what I'd like to do.
I mean, he did draw a walk in his one plate appearance in the World Series.
I love the game of baseball. I'd like to continue playing. I will sign with the Saints. The Twins would be like, okay, cool, that's fine. So he could continue playing.
I did see Mr. and Mrs. Dozier around my neighborhood in the North Loop when they were here when I first moved in. They lived like just right behind me. You used to see them all the time.
Name driver.
Were they just like bouncing around at the restaurants?
They'd be bouncing around restaurants. They'd be walking the dog.
Red Rabbit fans for sure.
Yeah, you
didn't you see Dozier there before like a Sunday day game getting brunch at Red Rabbit?
Yes. And then I believe in that same game, if I'm not mistaken, he had an inside the park home run.
Amazing.
But yes, I saw him there. And I'm like, is that Brian Dozier? No, it can't be. He's got to be at the ballpark. And it was Brian Dozier. He talked about it.
He had one of the most, and it was a scorching half of a season. And then he sort of, he struggled in the other half. But his 2016 season with the Twins, he hit 42 home runs, drove in 99 and stole 18 bases. It is legitimately one of the better offensive seasons in Twins history.
And for a second baseman?
2016.
Yeah,
that's incredible. That's great. But at 33, you're not retiring.
Out of the league 4 years later.
Forced out of the league.
It's true.
Let's call it what it is.
Shouldn't it be a distinction? Like when Glenn Perkins didn't retire. Glenn Perkins' arm couldn't throw a ball 90 miles an hour anymore, and he just like went and moved to the lake, right?
Yes.
I don't think there was a grand announcement. Why do we need a grand announcement?
Financially, which is awesome. That's great. But yeah, well, I think it's fine to say I'm done playing baseball because I'm not wanted. I think that's absolutely fine. To say that the league has turned its back on me is accurate, and I'd be fine with that. If you put out a press release that said, I called everybody and their brother, and they don't want me, then I'm like, okay, cool. You're no longer playing baseball. But to make it sound like you've stepped aside, okay, here's a question. And don't overreact and say, no way. Does he get consideration? Because I think he will for the Twins Hall of Fame.
Yes. He will 100% be in the Twins Hall of Fame. 100% be in the Twins Hall of Fame.
Write that down.
In fact.
Oh, yeah. That's binding.
In fact, can I add to write that down?
I already added one. I added one to Doogie just earlier, so go for it.
This is the rule.
Write this down. I don't think we should make a habit of doing these outside of the segment, but extreme circumstances. Write this down. Brian, and let me ask a clarifying question. Dan Gladden has not yet made it to the Twins Hall of Fame, right?
That is correct, and it's an outrage.
I'm pretty sure. I'll double check it.
I'm sure you're right.
Write this down. Brian Dozier will make the Twins Hall of Fame before Dan Gladden.
No way.
The game-winning run of the 1991 World Series and
two-time world champion,
a 20-year broadcast fixture in the booth, right?
Are you serious? You really think
Dozier will? Well, why has Gladdy not made it yet to this point?
I'm disgusted by this.
It doesn't make sense to me.
I'm with you.
It's local media that votes on it, right? Yes, is there any other percentage?
It's not me.
It's local media and people in the organization.
Like, how do I not vote on this?
I've gotten a vote on this for a long time. I think it's because I was a beat writer.
I don't get a ballot. Like I go to,
I have voted for Dan Gladden multiple times.
Where's my ballot? Because I'd vote for 32.
Yeah, he will make it. You
acquired this man in '87, and he immediately helped you win a World Series. How was he not in your Hall of Fame?
Let me just check. Twins
two-time
Hall of Fame.
world champion.
Is Gene Larkin in the Twins Hall of Fame?
No.
I got a list here for you.
No, he's not, and he shouldn't be.
Okay. All right, here's the Twins Hall of Fame. Here's the Twins Hall of Fame. It's Harmon Killebrew, Rod Carew, Tony Oliva, Kent Herbeck, Kirby Puckett, Calvin Griffith was the first class. That was in 2000.
Calvin, yeah.
Herb Carneal, Jim Cott, Burt Blyleven, Tom Kelly, Bob Allison, Bob Casey, Earl Batty, Frank Viola, Carl Pohlad, Zola Versailles, Gary Gaetti, Jim Rance, front office legend.
Yep.
Rick Aguilera, Brad Radke, George Brophy, Greg Gagne, Jim Perry, Camilo Pasquale, Eddie Gordado, Tom Mee, John Gordon, Torrey Hunter, Michael Kadire, Andy McPhail, and they don't have it updated for the last couple of years, but Joe Nathan got in.
Morneau was going to go in, or he did last year. That they just didn't have the night for
Mauer
him.
got in.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, absolutely.
And then I feel like another older player got in there, but like if Eddie Gordado is in the Twins Hall of Fame,
how is Dan Gladden not?
How is Dan Gladden not?
And you're telling me
Eddie Guardado.
You're telling me
he got the save in a first round playoff series that clinched, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
Dan Gladden scored the game winning run of the 9-1 World Series.
Yeah. And played a huge role.
And has been
the whole thing.
A broadcaster for 20 years.
So you are telling me, write that down prediction, that Brian Dozier will go into the Twins Hall of Fame before Dan does. That is ridiculous.
Listen, and I am not ripping these people. Michael Kadire is in the Twins Hall of Fame. Brian Dozier and Michael Kadire, sort of similar. Kadire played longer for the Twins. It was more of a long-time Twin.
Yep.
But both guys who put up some really good offensive numbers, never won like an MVP or anything. They were like really good baseball players for the Twins. Kadire played probably more like winning playoff baseball.
That's what
than
I was going to say.
Dozier did.
Kadire did for sure.
But
postseason legend, remember.
But I think part of it is like the writers, a lot of it's recency bias. If Gladden didn't get in 10 years ago, the people who cover the team and have votes.
So where's my damn vote? Because I'd vote for Gladdy.
Well, and
I saw those teams.
If either Dozier or Cuddy, who were both also, like media darlings, they would give you good quotes. They were good dudes.
Mm-hmm.
If they weren't as vocal, would they have this type of respect? Would they have the type of guardianship that would
Kadire, I think would for sure, because I think he was pretty good. Here's my number one problem with Doge, okay? And this is a Minnesota sports problem that I will take to my grave without championships at the rate we're going to. My number one problem with Doge is he is the symbol to me of the Twins teams starting in 2011. The Twins teams, and he was a good guy, and he had some prolonged hot streaks that are beyond impressive, right? But look at the record of those teams. Look at those teams. Those teams were, for the most part, awful. He was the best player on awful teams. And the 1 year where he got on a good team was Torrey came back and things changed. But like if you look at the body of Brian Dozier's work as a Twin, tell me that you basically don't grab your nose and say, pew.
Well, I think...
And it's not all his fault. I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying those were the teams.
Yeah, I think the paradoxical thing about Brian Dozier, too, is he would put up... You look at some of these seasons, it's like, oh, my God, 100 runs, 30, 40 home runs. He'd drive in 90, 95, 100 from a leadoff spot. But then you'd kind of... And those are great. And listen, I'll take those numbers over the course of a full season. However I get them, I'll just take those numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But then you go a little deeper, and it's like he was the best hitter in baseball for 2 months and then was unplayable for 2 months,
Right.
And we give you those stretches. And those Twins teams did a lot of that where everything looks pretty good here for a month and a half. And then all of a sudden they would just be the worst team in baseball for another stretch. So, but yeah, write it down. Brian Dozier will be in the Twins Hall of Fame before Dan Gladden.